The prodigal son has returned home. Having spent all his money, all his inheritance, and loose living in a distant land, he woke up to the fact that he had to go back to the father and beg for forgiveness, which is what he did. And upon his return, his father accepted him back into the family joyously and ordered for a big party, big celebration to begin. This is the essence of the first part of the great parable by Jesus Christ called The Return of the Prodigal Son. And today, now we covered that first part in our previous episode, but today we'll cover the part number 2, the second and final part of the parable, which has to do with the older brother. And the story goes like this. On the very same day when the younger brother returned home and got accepted back to the family, having humbled himself before his father, the older son was working in the fields. In the afternoon, he was coming back home, and from the distance he heard a great celebration, great party, music, dancing. He was, of course, surprised because he did not know anything about it. Ordinarily he would. So he called one of the servants when he came close to the house to inquire about what was going on in the house. And the servants told him that his younger brother had returned, and the father was delighted to have him back safe and sound, and that he had a fatted calf killed and ordered for a big celebration to begin. And the older brother was furious. He was angry. He wasn't happy with this at all. So he did not want to go into the house. He refused to do so. He did not want to join the party. The father then ran out of the house, came out and began to plead with the older son to come in and join the party. To which the older son replied to his father saying, "Listen, I have worked for you like a slave all these years. I have never disobeyed your orders. Yet you've never given me even a kid, which is like a young goat, to eat and be merry with my friends. And now this son of yours returns, having spent all his inheritance on prostitute and loose living, and you have a fatted calf killed, in order for a big party to begin." And the father said, "My son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But it is right and just that we celebrate, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." And with these words of the father, this great parable ends. And in order to understand what this second part of the parable talks about in more depth, we're going to start with a couple of more generalized and also philosophical maybe points in the second bit. Initially, I just want to remind you that something you probably know, but generally when there's two brothers in a family, it doesn't work in every family, but generally it does. And the British royal family is actually a very good example, because we have an older brother William and the younger brother Harry. Now, older brother is usually more obedient, understands that he will inherit the estate, for example, or a title, and so on and so forth. And he works, he's a diligent worker, he's obedient, trustworthy, loyal, and so on and so forth. While the younger brother tends to be more of a darling of the family, perhaps, so certainly hasn't got that burden of being the main inheritor of the estate, and it has more space. It has more space to be more free, let's say, and he will be more forgiven for any misdeeds and so on and so forth. So that's a kind of a general setup. And again, the British royal family is a very good example. William being the older brother, obedient and hardworking and loyal, and Harry being much more a rebellious son, younger son. Now, we established in our first episode that man is essentially a prodigal son, that he leaves the father, he goes into the world, he gets lost or goes out on a tangent and commits misdeeds, thinking that he's doing something great and so on and so forth, and in the end ends up in a difficult situation, ends up hurting himself and or others, which is what happened to the youngest son, of course. But it's a general point for human beings. It's almost like impossible for us not to express that rebellion. It is something given to us. We're unique in that way. Again, I will repeat that from the first episode. Birds and flowers and trees and nature cannot rebel. You see, they always live with the Father being God. They always live with the Father. They never leave the Father. They haven't got an impetus to leave the Father. But with us, they're very relaxed in many ways. Nature is very relaxed, despite the fact that it can experience bad weather and intensities and deaths and all that. We're full of tensions. We're full of restlessness and so on. And a lot of that restlessness comes from the fact that we have left the Father. We have left the Garden of Eden. We have rebelled, you see. And that rebellion is very close to us. But in a certain kind of way, human beings cannot actually live, really. A lot of people cannot without rebellion, It seems to be part of the course of our lives to rebel, to leave, and then to return. And the Father is always waiting for us, always looking out through the window to see when are we coming back, you see. And then when we do come back, He accepts us immediately back to the family and orders for a big celebration to begin. And this is not just for the younger brother, this is for all of us. Everybody who returns back to the Father is welcomed with much excitement and love and hugs and a big celebration with music and dancing. And this is something bigger than just a story. It's the fact of life. And those of us who completely return back to the Father, like Christ or the Buddha, are just such special and beautiful cases, you see, that we all need to look up to and try to emulate in that return. So in this story, the younger brother rebelled. His rebellion was rebellion through sinful living. So he lived sinfully, very sinfully. Prostitutes, drugs, drinks, what have you, burnt all his inheritance. I mean, you name it. He forced almost the father, didn't, but to give the inheritance too early to him, and a lot of embarrassment, a lot of issues. Whilst with the older brother, that's not the case. He was completely obedient, you see. He never did anything wrong. He was the perfect son. His rebellion took place through self-righteousness, you see. Through self-righteousness, which is a very different type of rebellion. And that type of rebellion is also actually much harder to break. It's much more intricate to see it, much more difficult to see it, to grasp it. But he's equally lost as the younger brother. Just the younger brother is very obvious. It's an obvious rebellion. This one is not obvious at all. You can't see it. It's so hidden. It's so intricate. And you see, in this story, Christ covered those two extreme cases. When you see it very clearly where the problem is, the other one, we can't see it at all. You actually support the older brother, for example. So the story, in the story itself, at the beginning of it, the older brother is where? Well, he's in the fields. And of course he's in the fields. The man had been working all his life, probably from a very early age, with the father, always out there working on the land, doing business, anything and everything that father would have requested of him and ordered him to do, he did. And that day, when this big celebration began, a big event happened, he knew nothing about it. Nobody came from the house. Nobody was sent to tell him anything. He was in the fields working. So he's coming back home, and he realized that the big party is happening. This wasn't an ordinary party. It was noisy. There was music and dance. And then he called a servant to tell him about it, what's happening. And the servant told him that his younger brother had come back, and the father was delighted by having him back safe and sound. So he ordered for a fat calf to be killed, you see. And that was the calf that they had been fattening for special occasions, you see. And this apparently all of a sudden became that special occasion. That was totally surprising to him, and also that in ordinary circumstances, you see, the younger brother is the inheritor of the father's estate upon his death and so on. He would be involved in any parties that are going on and celebrations. He would be the one that, that welcomes people, that helps them to find their seats, that make sure they have the food and the drinks and so on. He would have the role of a matadi, let's say. That wouldn't be the father's job. It would be the older brother's job. But he wasn't there. He knew nothing about it. He was upset about that. And then father realized. So he was upset about many things, which we'll hear. But this was one of them. Then the father realized that the older brother was there outside, but he wouldn't come in. So he came out, realized what was happening, and began pleading with him. And see that word pleading, he was trying to talk him into pleading with him, please come and join us, join the party. He knew it was very important that he joins the party. The father knew. See, why father called the party was because he's not looking at life as you and I, ordinary people, from our sort of little perspective, and however wide it may be for you, we don't know. But he understood that the return of that younger son is such a huge event, spiritually, religiously, you name it. Anyway, it's huge, and this requires it's far beyond any money and what was spent and profit and loss accounts of what he'd spent and why. No, the father is big and generous, and he understands that it's time to celebrate. Just forget about everything. Celebrate. This is a huge event. My son was dead. He's alive. But we don't look at it like that. Neither did the older brother. The older brother was upset. Why? Well, he told father why. When as father was trying to plead with him, he told him, listen. And at the start of that whole little monologue of the older brother is very, very powerful. He says, listen, to your father, who you should respect and honor, and not avoid calling him father, you see, out of respect. But you tell him, listen, enough of you trying to plead with me, listen to me. We're man to man here, and the gloves are off. I'm tired of all of this. This is just, you see, big events in life, you probably know this from your life, have the power to bring out what's hidden. You see, stuff that is within, that it's cooking within, and it's never shown on the surface, can bubble up very easily, very swiftly, and then there's a kind of a problem or a scandal, and things happen. Christmas is a classic example. There's a percentage of people that find Christmas very difficult because of family issues that come up, and they try to sit down around dinner, and things just come to the surface, and they cannot be hidden. Sometimes they're like that. Big parties are like that, particularly for such a difficult reason. The party was thrown, the return of the younger brother, who was a great sinner, you see. The older brother had seen him committing that great sin. He would have never dreamt doing anything like it. The older brother was exemplary. He was hard-working, trustworthy, reliable, solid. He was a perfect son. He was upright and good and conscientious, industrious, all of that. He'd never done anything wrong, you see. And then he's now witnessing this party situation. He's shocked. So he says to the father, listen, I've worked for you for all these years like a slave. So now he's saying here, he doesn't call him the father. And he also says, I've been your slave. I've been working for you like a slave. This whole thing of son and father and son, I've been a slave. That's it. And I've never once disobeyed your orders. That's a big thing. And it's a true statement. He's not lying here. So that's quite a shocker. So that's the first sentence. And then he says, but you've never given me. So I've been your slave, and I've been doing this, and I've never disobeyed you, but you've never even given me a little goat that I can slaughter and have a big celebration and party with my friends, because I have friends, you see, and I have a life, and you've never given me anything like that. But now when this son of yours, you see, another thing, this son of yours, it's like not my brother, but this son of yours. It's derogatory, and he says, this son of yours returns having spent all his money on prostitutes and whores and a loose living, all his inheritance, and you kill a fatted calf for him, which is a big animal, you see, especially fattening for these types of events, and for him you do that, but you don't give me a kid, a young goat, to celebrate with my friends. So it's very strong, you see. He's angry, and the thing is that you and I'm sure you do, I understand him. I see, from ordinary worldly point of view, I understand him. He's been feeling like this for many years, and now it's come to the surface. He's not going to be lying anymore, and this scandalous development has really opened all doors, and so he's showing him where he's really at. Doesn't call him father, this son of yours. Oh my God, don't give me anything. I've been your slave for years, never disobeyed you. Heavy stuff. And the father goes soft, you see. Goes soft with him and says, my son. So he calls him my son. You're always with me. So you and I are inseparable. We are one flesh and blood. You see, and all that I have is mine. All that is mine is yours, you see. So there is no difference to it. We're one, essentially. You see this, so we're together, we're one, we've never parted, we're in this together. This is, we're closer than close. But you see, this brother of yours, and see, he goes along with how the older brother called him, this son of yours, says, this brother of yours, he was dead, now he's alive, he was lost, now he's found. These are very, very big words. He's saying, understand the magnitude of the situation. Do not let your personal grievances come and stop you joining the celebration, because this is way beyond any of our considerations. Maybe we can talk about it later, but he was dead and he's alive, almost implying I've been thinking about it for years, thinking that he was dead, and it was bothering me greatly. But now that he's alive, I cannot but celebrate the return of your brother and my son. So very powerful and also very fatherly. And you see, the parable is left open there. And we'll talk about it a little bit more, why that is. But it's important to remember that the younger brother greatly embarrassed and humiliated the father by asking for inheritance way too early, and then going abroad and disappearing and leaving the family. Great embarrassment, because the likelihood is they live in a farming village, and if you ever lived in a village or know villages, in villages everybody knows everything. Everybody's seen, and everybody's actions are seen, and everybody will see something you're doing, and it's all going to be exposed and seen, good and bad. So the village would have probably considered the father weak already because of how he dealt with the youngest son. And also weak when the youngest son returned. He ran to meet him, you see, which is a respectable man wouldn't be doing that, particularly after what the youngest son had done. But now the older son is humiliating him because the father needs to run out of the house to invite, to plead with him to come to the party, and so he's again humiliated. Then the older son humiliates him through his monologue and tells him, doesn't call him, everything I've said already. So the father is getting humiliation from both sons, yet all that he wants is to have his family together and his sons to return to him and to the family, and he'll do anything for that, and he'll forgive everything. And so he's showing an incredible generosity, an incredible spirit, incredible love, incredible kindness. This is a very, very special man, and of course we understand that this is Christian God that Jesus Christ is talking about here. So we can all learn from such a father, you see, because I recognize myself in the younger brother very much, but I very much recognize myself in the older brother. How many times in my life have I been refusing to go into a party because I was upset with somebody at that party, and furious with somebody, whatever the thing might have been. I had had an issue, or other people. I'm not unique in that, but I'm just saying the whole point is that we see ourselves in both of this son, and I can vouch that I do actually. So to see the Father's conduct is incredibly enlightening and very, very beautiful. So great lesson to all of us. And the parable is left open at the end, and Christ did that masterfully and very intelligently. Why? Because the actual condition of the oldest son is basically worse than the youngest sons, you see. His rebellion by self-righteousness is far more intricate, far more difficult to notice. On the surface, he's perfect. There's nothing, and his words are just and correct. I mean, he's airing how he's been feeling and what's been going on for him. And a lot of this we have to say, well, I understand. I really do, You don't blame him, you see, and that's the whole thing. But you can easily blame the younger brother. And that's why I'm saying there are two extreme cases. One is an obvious sinner. But in this situation, on that day, just at that time, he's in a better spiritual shape than the older brother, whose pride has taken over, anger, righteous anger. When that kicks in, it's very, very hard to go beyond it, because you can't do it with your reason, with logic. You see, we can't do it with working it out logically, because the logic is totally on your side, sort of on the side of your case that you're fighting, like the older brother. So you have to do it with spiritual heart to make that leap, and that is not easy. So it's open. Christ left it open because we don't know what is going to happen, and if the older son will be able to overcome this situation and surrender in humility to Father, to what the Father is pleading him to do. So I hope you enjoyed the second part of the parable of the prodigal son, and I hope you recognize yourself in one or both of the brothers. Christ actually, that's a kind of part of a bigger story, which I don't necessarily want to go into too much, but there was a part of Jewish society at the time. They were called Pharisees and scribes, and they were like I would say maybe upper parts of the upper classes of the society, sort of people, legalists and moralists, and people who were obeying the Jewish law, the Mosaic law, very, very thoroughly, and who were outwardly doing everything very, very correctly, you see. And so, and Christ was actually highlighting how even those people who seemingly live with the Father, live with God, completely, actually inwardly can have so many things that are very ungodly and they're very dark. But because that they outwardly respect and appreciate it and follow the form to the T, they consider themselves beyond reproach, you see. But actually, they have a lot of issues themselves. They just refuse to see it, and so that's the essence of pride. And pride is a very violent thing, It's the heaviest, unfortunately, of all sins. Apparently, well, at least in Christianity, but I think in all traditions, pride is absolutely super difficult to break in human beings, you see. So anyway, we shall see what happens with the older brother. But I hope you enjoyed this second episode. Once again, just remembering the Father, that we should mirror the behavior of the Father and his understanding, and not pay too much attention how people perceive us, if we are weak or strong, and so on and so forth. What we want is to keep our family together and to keep understanding where Father was at, how he responded, how big and generous and kind he was. And that is the main thing. It is not, he never retaliated, you see. He understands that life is difficult, that we make mistakes, and we sin, and we suffer greatly because of it. We don't need more suffering. He doesn't want to bash us over the head even more. And this is another beauty of Christian God, you see. He understands human suffering, and he will forgive if you're genuinely humble. It's a beautiful thing, beautiful thing. I hope you're well wherever you are. Many blessings to you, and until our next meeting, thank you.